It's high summer in eastern Ukraine, and we're traveling to where the war with Russia could be lost or won. To where soldiers ride shotgun against kamikaze drones, where the shelling is heaviest, where in order to survive, life has to be lived underground, and where a city is being fought over and, whichever side wins, will be razed to the ground. This month, the Ukrainian army astonished the world by launching a major incursion into Russia itself. So far, it's succeeding. That is to say, fighting rages deep inside the Kursk region. The Ukrainian flag has been raised over scores of Russian villages and towns. The endgame is unclear. But one of the motives for this bold and unexpected move is to ease the enormous pressure Russia has been putting on Ukraine's defense line in Donbass. Since the spring, Russia has been on the advance there again. Village after village has been captured. The critical point of the whole front now is the Donetsk hill city of Chasiv Yar. The Russians are pushing into its eastern suburbs. And if Russia takes the whole of Chasiv Yar, then Ukraine's whole Donbass defense could begin to unravel. That is what multiple military sources tell us. This summer, the Frontline team has been given unprecedented access to the Ukrainian defense of Chasiv Yar. We are being hosted by 4 different brigades and a special reconnaissance unit, all of whom shared with us recent combat footage. We first met some of these units in January this year, in the snow and sub-zero temperatures of the Kupiansk and Sloviansk front lines. In spring, these units were rushed south to Chasiv Yar to help prevent a tactical and strategic disaster. Now they're fighting for their lives in the blistering heat of high summer. In just a few months, 2 of the units lost more than half their men since we last met. The Russian casualties have been even worse. Chasiv Yar remains the key to the Donbass. This is what we saw there. Jamie and I will travel into the shattered frontline city twice in 3 days. Neither trip is good for the nerves, given the constant attention of Russian drones and the additional threat of the artillery that is steadily destroying the city. Our first attempt to enter is disrupted before it begins. The Russians are firing thermobaric rockets into one of the districts we had planned to pass through. Chasiv Yar is on fire, we are told this morning. Later drone footage of the attack confirms this to be the case, so we will have to approach from another direction. We are with a special reconnaissance unit in a British-donated pickup truck. It's commanded by our old friend, the decorated veteran Lieutenant Oleg. He's equipped with 2 pieces of kit that might, just might, help protect us against kamikaze strikes. The first is a drone detector, a little black box with 2 antennae, which fits in the palm of his hand. It can pick up the electronic signals of UAVs flying within a 10-kilometer radius. The frequency of the radio signal identifies the type of drone, while the strength of the signal suggests its proximity to the box, to us. The second is a Magnum pump-action shotgun, the barrel of which is now jutting skywards out of the window. Oleg looks a little like the guard on the Deadwood stagecoach. This is not comforting. His Magnum is a weapon of last resort against kamikaze drones. It's a little like clay pigeon shooting, except the clays are coming right at you, and will kill you if you miss. The reconnaissance soldiers are more relaxed than we are. In the background, Miley Cyrus is singing Flowers on the truck's radio. The first signs of war. We cross a railway line and accelerate towards the city. This is a dangerously straight and exposed stretch of road. You cannot hear it for the noise of the slipstream, but the drone detector has started its ominous warning beep. A Mavic drone, mostly used for surveillance, is somewhere nearby. We pull off the road, under what cover is available, and wait. The soldiers are concerned about the Mavic guiding in kamikazes. The outskirts of Chasiv Yar are very close now. We begin to smell the burning city. Finally, we reach the suburbs. We enter a residential district that has been badly damaged by shellfire.
5-10 minutes.
The drone threat here is very high. The crash and boom of artillery exchanges are constant. In this environment, no one moves in the open unless absolutely necessary. If you do move, then there is a chance you will attract unwelcome interest.
We're in Chasiv Yar, which is possibly the hottest spot on the Donbass front line. It's a crucial city, and if the Russians take this city, then many other towns and cities in Donbass are under threat, and they can launch a major breakthrough. A lot of artillery, which you may hear in the background. We were told when we came in that the city was on fire today because there was so much artillery. You can see behind me, it's a big residential block, typical of Chasiv Yar, which has been badly damaged by the fighting and is now abandoned, empty, as every neighbourhood that we've been driving through at the moment. We can only stay here for a few minutes. We have drone detection devices. It's quite cloudy today, which is good, but there are still drones in the air, and it's a dangerous place to be.
We've stayed here long enough. The soldiers are concerned that we will be spotted. It's time to move on.
Саня! Саня! Давай, иди сюда! Поехали!
This is tense. The Russians rule the skies.
Давай, поехали налево, там еще хорошая туда. Там защита деревьев нормальная. Короче, лек от дома стоит. Я до других мужиков.
Yeah. Okay. You can see the extent of the damage done to this residential district of Chasiv Yar. A lot of artillery going off today. We passed through a district that was under bombardment this morning. This looks like it was hit some time ago, but if there was anybody here, it would have been very serious for them. Chasiv Yar is pretty much deserted now. There were a few hundred people left when we came here in the spring of last year, but very, very few people here, and it's now being bitterly fought over by the Ukrainian army, which still holds the majority of it, and the Russians who are probing into it and are making attacks every day. In a nearby park, a statue of the Russian-born Soviet-era writer Maxim Gorky has been chopped in two. Whether this was done by the Ukrainians or Russian artillery, it's now impossible to say. But it's time to run the drone gauntlet again and escape Chasiv Yar. But we will be back. It's a summer Sunday afternoon, and the Donbass front line is hot in every sense. Today we've been invited to an alfresco lunch by our old friends in Thunder Company of the 41st Brigade. They are the owners of Dusya, the now famous cat. This is a bittersweet reunion. Stripped to the waist, Commander Andrei is making plov over a fire pit. His deputies, Kruger and Igor, are also in attendance. All three are in their 50s and have been wounded multiple times since the fighting in Donbass began in 2014. They are examples of how Generation X is bearing the brunt of this war. The average age of a Ukrainian combat soldier is 43. Since we last met, these middle-aged soldiers haven't lost their keen sense of hospitality or humour. But they are clearly exhausted and also a little demoralised. A village close to their positions, which Igor helped take 10 years ago, has fallen to the Russians overnight. And then there is the issue of casualties. We first encountered them at the start of the year, sharing their abandoned cottage on the Kupiansk front line. Then it was minus 20 degrees outside. Igor cooked. He loves cooking even more than the commander. Kruger complained that he'd been given a Second World War era submachine gun to fight the Russian invasion. Since then, Thunder Company were rushed south to shore up the critical Chasiv Yar front into a meat grinder of First World War proportions. The majority of their 100 men who were with Thunder Company in Kupiansk are now either dead or wounded. I have plov made by the commander, Andrei. It's his speciality. It looks great. It's been cooked on a barbecue fire outside. So it's a Sunday lunch al fresco, Chasiv Yar sector. to the rumble of artillery. Ours is a strange picnic, within the sound of the never-ending battle. We met you some months ago in January in Kupiansk, and the situation there seemed pretty tough. It was very cold. I know there was heavy Russian pressure. Since then, you have moved to this sector. Could you tell me how the situation is now for Thunder Company?
Ну, что происходило? Мы держали линию обороны на Купинске, держали ее стабильно, хорошо, начали отбрасывать противника, бросили на 500 метров уже, на полкилометра, начали развивать успех, но так как 67-я бригада, которая была здесь, она понесла серьезные потери на Часов Яре, командованием было принято решение перебросить нас на более ответственный участок фронта. Да, мы вышли, мы сразу же зашли на позицию, на передовую позицию основную. Сразу же в тот же день начали штурмы. В течение там трех суток мы удерживали позиции, удерживали вход в новый часик, так называемый, новый Часов Яр. Практически весь личный состав, который находился на тот момент на позициях, было либо 200, либо 300.
Ну, за 3 дня.
Да, за 3 дня. Но мы остановили штурмы производились воздушно-десантными войсками российскими. Мы полностью остановили штурм и не дали пройти им часик. Причем мы зашли на полностью пустые позиции. Там никого не было. Ну, таким вот образом.
They speak of their tiredness and shortage of heavy or advanced weapons.
Да, конечно, устали, но что делать?
Yeah, sure. We are tired, but what can we say? What can we do?
Ну, звичайно, стосується людей, которые ситуация она постоянно усложняется. Соответственно, людей, которые там приходят новые, они быстро не могут понять и вникнуть в ситуацию и все. Поэтому логично там ветеранов отправлять куда-то на отдых, но это в данной ситуации сделать невозможно, потому что нужны те, кто быстро ориентируется и быстро реагирует на изменения ситуации и на постоянное ухудшение ситуации. Ну, опять же, мы же говорили это еще на Купинске, о том, что война сейчас выходит на новый уровень, высокотехнологичный. То есть нам для того, чтобы эффективно противостоять тому, что происходит, тому, что сейчас против нас вытаскивает противник, нам надо иметь современное высокотехнологичное оружие. Те же системы контрбатарейной борьбы, дальнобойную артиллерию, желательно ракетную, реактивную, системы борьбы с дронами и ударные, прежде всего, опять же, я об этом говорил на Купинске, ударные дроны типа там Грей Игла или Раптора, Предейтора. Вот таким вот образом. Потому что мы воюем, собственно говоря, детскими игрушками, купленными на Алиэкспресс, по большому счету.
С боеприпасами, которые делаем сами.
Да, с боеприпасами, которые делают вот Андрей и Игорь, производят сами боеприпасы, которые вы видели. Да, мы скатываемся в средневековье, мы начинаем уже на противника лить горячую смолу, бросать камни, блин. Ну, вот куда еще. Но это эффективно, опять же. Здесь уже там одним Карлом Густавом, 42-го года уже вопрос не решается. Потому что, уже контакта, между пехотой уже его просто не происходит.
The self-made ammunition they refer to is to be found in a nearby caravan. This is Igor's mobile workshop, where he makes bombs for drones. The fins are made by a 3D printer. How many has he made? Has his unit here made in this? Igor consults a school exercise book in which these statistics are recorded.
He has to check.
His computer.
Це тільки по зажигалкам в мене 222 літри вже. Це 200 з крайнім і крайнім в мене. Ну, більше 1000 вже боєприпасів ушло. А до цього то, ну, по времени то є, появляється время. Я там, допустим, наточу, Валеріч теж сідає. Потім хвостовики собрав, патронів явно набив. У мене в запас завжди є, лежить. Тільки коли треба бігом, то клас собрали предохранителі і пушили.
So basically, whenever someone has time, spare time, he would go there.
He comes here. It's like old ladies knitting.
Yeah.
You're making your bombs. There is a crate of the homemade Thunder Company bombs on the floor outside, ready to be sent to their drone operators.
For very small ones.
Having suffered almost 80% casualties since arriving in Chasiv Yar, Thunder Company's remaining effective element is the mortar platoon. But the Chasiv Yar mortarmen often find themselves being targeted by main battle tanks and even more formidable heavy weapons. This is Sasha, a lawyer by profession. Now he is Thunder Company's mortar platoon commander, whom you just saw in frantic action. Sasha received 3 months training in the UK at West Down Camp near Salisbury in the summer of 2023. He has very fond memories of England and tells a funny story about his time with the British Army.
Я understand.
Ми були там на базі, на Вестдауні, ми забыл, как первая база. Там заборонялося українцям продавати пиво. Да, я там ходил без бороды, но просто с усами. И они меня приняли за ирландцев, и я покупал пиво.
It's 'cause, yeah, he's got his little colouring. You could be. I have Irish cousins, and they look a bit like you.
Они все, почему-то ирландцы все были у нас инструкторы, они все с усиками ходили. И я помню, зашел, я по-английски ничего не понимаю. Я такой, beer? No, no problem. Купил. Иду, все там, вот как ты купил? И меня продали. А потом с переводчицей зашел туда, она говорит, ну типа, ну я уже потом сказал, что я там купил пару раз в этом, ну, чтобы у нее проблем не было. Она, ну как бы продавщица нам сказала, я тебя за ирландца принимала.
That time is now just a halcyon memory for Sasha.
Важка війна. Важка війна в плані технологій. І якщо хтось там говорить, що от там кацапи, тупі, я з цим не згоджусь ніколи. Від початку війни я не згоджусь. Тому що ні, вони вчаться. Вони працюють. І вони, технології у них на досить високому рівні. Вони, я так розумію, по тій кількості, що в них є в небі, вони не жаліють цього. Тобто це дуже багато. От іменно я ще ніде не бачив стільки, скільки в часовому яру. Особисто ми попали в перші ж дні. В перші ж дні мою машину так би розбило. Тобто ми за 3-4 доби ми приспособились до цього, як тікати, тому що працювати треба було. Ставити позиції і все, ну...
One mortar crew in his platoon found itself being hunted in central Chasiv Yar by a terrifying thermobaric rocket system.
Мій розрахунок попав під ТОС, під сонцепьок, ну, але дякуючи, що наші служби сработали наперед, мені скинули інформацію, що у підарів є вже кори моїх ребят, я їх спів вивезти, це все, ну, ми ушли. Один розрахунок 82-го міномета. Тобто ми зрівнюємо средства тим, що ми працюємо. Тобто ви розумієте, що таке 82-й міномет? Це, ну, условно, для відбиття живої сили піхоти. То розрахунок їм настільки надоїв, що вони вирішили, ну, тобто, вирішили це зрівняти, просто цей квартал. Скільки стоїть сонцепьок, ми самі розуміємо, да? От така мінка, і нас не пожаліли, щоб зрівняти.
Tanks are also a big threat to his crews.
Допустимо, 3 постріли танка ми вже ізучили. 3-4 постріли танка, потім 5 хвилин перекур у танка. Він десь чи підводиться, чи його коригують. Ми в ці секунди ми розпаковуємо свій міномет в ці хвилини, кидаємо 3 постріли міномету, і опять падає. Ну, саме найстрашне це, ну, танк, це страшно, тому що ти не чуєш лише виход і вже приход. Тобто, якщо там міномет, 120-та міна, вона десь свистить, ти розумієш, що от град там свистить, ти там шукаєш шнуру, десь упав, все. А танк – це страшна зброя. Він бум, сразу же. Ви ж бачили, опа, хата вже.
Like most soldiers, Sasha, who is about to turn 40, dreams of home.
Так, в мене є, ну, дружина і син. Сину 16 буде 22 іюля, я його не бачив, відколи я в армії. Я мрію, що він зараз приїжджає, він в мене навчається за кордоном, він сам поступив після 9 класу. там займається спортом, і я мрію поїхати зараз на день народження. Він приїжджає, і ми хочемо зустріти. Я не бачив його з прошлого году, з 1 травня я його не бачив. Так, я мрію поїхати в відпустку.
Sergeant Nazar can't afford to dream. He trained to become a dentist. Now he is a scout from the 5th Assault Brigade. Nazar's brigade has been in the Chasiv Yar front line for 2 years without a break.
Of course, we want more rest, but we understand if some smaller brigade or battalion coming here, we can lose more. Look like we will stay here.
Okay.
So we must make that job what we must.
The Chasiv Yar sector has become very critical for the whole of Donbass and even perhaps the whole
Yep.
war. Can you explain a little bit of why is Chasiv Yar so important?
For Russian plans, it's just logical going in Chasiv Yar because it's parts when they can just stay and have small rest. If they not taking the Chasiv Yar, they lose big things for next step. If they want to make next step for all Donetsk region, they must take the Chasiv Yar because if they don't take Chasiv Yar, they can't make next big city. Because of that, they also lose a lot of people, a lot of technical, a lot of tanks, because it's really important things for that. And we must also use a lot of energy and a lot of people to protect that.
2 days before we met, he encountered his first African mercenaries on the battlefield. They were in the forefront of a Russian meat-wave infantry attack on his trench, on the edge of Chasiv Yar.
The Russian take a new contract soldier from a different, some cheap region. They make for a really cheap salary. Russia has that practice. They have a meat-wave.
The meat-wave, yeah.
Yeah, so now they found some new parts of meat-wave. It's from contract soldiers from different countries. Of course, it's for them. They going in a first wave because anybody not counted inside for Russian news. Anybody not know about that. They don't need to show it that if they lose somebody from another country. Oh, it's another country. So that guy is going just really for a cheap salary, and they lose that life for what? For Russian help? Really, it's hard to understand.
So you had personal contact with some of these Africans?
Actually, yes. A couple days ago, it was first time for us what we really found that in the front. So really, they're coming.
Yeah. And what happened to the African soldiers who were attacking your position?
Look like with all our enemies, they just destroyed it.
We first met Nazar in January in a snowstorm. Then he described the difficulties of fighting in midwinter in sub-zero temperatures, with shortages of men and modern equipment. He'd even bought himself a new American-manufactured AR-15 assault rifle for €3,000, rather than fight with the Soviet-era rifle given to him by the army. He said he felt his life was worth more than €3,000. That was 6 months ago. Now it's high summer, 32 degrees. And the fighting is just as hard, if not harder, as the Russians press to take Chasiv Yar. He shared some of his recent combat footage with us. As we talk, the war continues.
And now you also hear it's some of rockets going.
Multi rocket launch,
Yep,
grad
yep,
or something.
Yep. Actually, but it's not a lot. It's just a couple. So that means it's something biggest, because how you say, the grad, it's smallest of them.
Yeah.
It's a war, and it happens every day. Every day somebody dying. Every day somebody has broken soul, broken body, and broken all of life, just because of somebody want. Oh, maybe we can steal a piece of ground.
Other units are helping hold the line. Northeast of Chasiv Yar lies the blood-soaked White Mountain. The chalk high ground here, very like the Wiltshire Downs, is the only sliver of Luhansk Oblast that the Ukrainians still hold. The Russians would love to take the White Mountain. but so far they have suffered thousands of casualties in failing to do so. Many of these casualties have been inflicted by our hosts, the gunners of the 81st Brigade, using British design and supplied 105mm light howitzers. The 81st have been dug in here for 2 years, and know every bush, one of the soldiers tells me. This has given them time to build this extraordinary underground command post in the middle of a wood. From here, the 81st coordinate artillery and drone strikes on the Russian assaults against the White Mountain. The bunker has been so heavily shelled in return, it's now operating on a skeleton staff. We're shown round by Ruslan from Odessa. It has its own power supply, of course, and a number of other modcons that weren't seen in dugouts during the First World War, when such trench warfare first flourished. For example, the bunker has a fitted kitchen that wouldn't be out of place in an apartment in London or New York. Cosy sleeping quarters, the by now ubiquitous pet cats, and even a gym. Ruslan tells me that across the White Mountain front line, the 81st are currently facing the Russian 7th Motorized Brigade and a Chechen Special Forces unit.
Да, потім знову інші заїжджають. По перехопленню часто зустрічаємо такі, знаєте, слова у противника, що вони не знають, куди вони їдуть, а потім командир каже, там, командир взводу, чи хтось інший, що їдемо в Білогорівку там, штурмувати, і більш час йде відказ. Бо всі знають, що таке Білогорівка, це легенда ж, Ірмузький трикутник, що хто заходить, більше ніхто не виходить. Треба тіла противника помічати як гусей. Краскою, знаєте, в селі, щоб не путати, тому що буває там 300 валяється, біля нього вже 5-6 трупаків. І ми не розуміємо, де 300, а де 200 вже, де старе, а де нове. У нас є одне місце, яке називається кладбище техніки, там реально багато техніки спалено. Це не доїжджає до наших позицій. Просто протитанкісти їх добре бачать і постійно туди катаються і постійно горять.
How frequently do they, I mean, they did the other day they launched an attack with half a company. How frequently do they attack like that?
Ну, зазвичай, оце вчорашній був штурм, до цього 2 тижні було тиша. Ну, вони, мабуть, збиралися. А до цього 2 тижні, що було тиша, вони також десь 3-4 дня масово штурмували нас. Вони робиться скупчення по передньому краю противника групами. Це тиждень часу. 2 тижні, ну це всі знають. І потім вони намагаються з 2-3 напрямків заходити для того, щоб там була паніка. 2-3 дня штурми, потім вони збирають рану, забирають, по можливості вони не завжди забирають свої 200-300 і знову починають скупчення живої сили. Іноді, раніше вони дуже часто застосовували техніку, це, мабуть, от январь і лютий, вони там дуже інтенсивно використовували техніку. Потім по подсчету там наших разведов, там что-то около 60 техніки було спалено, вони вже почали живою силою, тому що у нас, ви бачили, рельєф дуже поганий, і вони живою силою, жива сила, стараються брати просто, це слово, більшістю, от, що у нас, кількістю, що у нас там,
ну, м'ясо, грубо кажучи,
м'ясом просто беруть. Нам, знаєте, в цьому випадку нам допомагає рельєф, тому що ми здалека бачимо, що їде якась техніка. Висить,
по ним висоти
дим
просто.
видно, або плив. Ми бачимо, що є якась техніка, їде нам на зустріч, півішки вже летять на зустріч.
Back in the control room, Ruslan and his colleagues are watching chilling drone footage of the aftermath of yesterday's unsuccessful Russian infantry assault on their White Mountain defense line. 3 Russian infantrymen have been spotted lying in a chalk crater in no man's land. They were probably wounded in yesterday's assault. This is a war without pity. As we watch, one of the Russian soldiers can be seen moving. The Ukrainians say they will finish these casualties with a kamikaze drone. Today, over Ukrainian lines, the sky is dirty. That's the artilleryman's euphemism for when the Russian drones are operating in their vicinity. When that is the case, they do not fire their big guns to avoid giving away their locations. In fact, the sky today is very dirty. We cannot leave the bunker because a Russian Orlan reconnaissance drone is directly overhead. Instead, we stay to watch live video feeds, hacked by the Ukrainians, from a succession of Russian Privet 82 kamikaze drones as they hunt the 81st firing positions in a tree line. It's surreal. We're looking at the Ukrainian positions through enemy eyes, in real time, as the Russian drone pilots try to find and kill our artillerymen hosts. Each time the Russian drone pilot pulls out of his final attack run because he's about to miss the target, the artillerymen laugh derisively. This dance of death can last for up to 1 hour.
But at some stage the drone pilot has to go because the battery will...
Yes.
He can't fly it back.
Finally, the screen goes fuzzy. The Russian kamikaze has crashed in front of the tree line, missing the 81st artillery battery that was its target. A further 14 privet drones will attack and miss the same target over the course of the afternoon. But it seems the Russians have an endless supply of both drones and men to sacrifice on the White Mountain defences, as they have in nearby Chasiv Yar. So we return to Chasiv Yar to join the infantry fighting for the city. Our first driver is Maka, of the 21st Separate Sarmatian Battalion of the 56th Brigade. His unit are the Mariupol Cossacks, whom we first met in Kupiansk. They've suffered severe casualties since then.
The front line is straight ahead.
On the edge of Chasiv Yar, we swap transport. Now, our driver is Opa, the deputy commander of the Sarmatians A Company. He is going to take us in for the final unpleasant sprint into the stricken city. The sky is clear, and the drone threat is as severe as always.
We're just coming to the outskirts, the seriously damaged outskirts of the town of Chasiv Yar, which is possibly the hottest spot now on the whole Ukrainian front line. We've been driving very fast across very bad roads because it's a very hot summer's day with clear blue skies, which makes it ideal drone weather. And there is a serious drone threat here every day. We're now inside the Chasiv Yar.
We can't film the surroundings as we reach the 21st Battalion's urban position, because inevitably it will be geolocated by the Russians and targeted for destruction. All we can reveal is that it's in the cellar of an already destroyed home. Life here has to be lived underground. Here the Sarmatians are fighting 2 Russian brigades. One is the 200, which includes former convicts, mostly used for meat waves or menial tasks. There is also the more proficient 98th Airborne Brigade. In the relative safety of this cellar, as the ingoing and outgoing artillery booms overhead, Opa gives me the tactical situation.
This is Sergeant Opa, who is the deputy company commander. Before the invasion, he was a senior detective in the police force in this area. And when he joined up after the invasion, he said that he would fight, but he wanted to fight for his land here, and that's what he's been doing ever since. He's been wounded several times. You can hear in the background maybe the thud of artillery again and again. But Opa, can you tell me why Chasiv Yar is so important to the Russians and the Ukrainians?
Ну, Часов Яр важен тем, то, что он находится на высоте, и дорога, ну, это, получается, является узловой развязкой, то может привести, ну, к плохим последствиям. Ну, то, что я подразумеваю, плохие последствия, это начнут страдать другие города. Это Константиновка, Краматорск, Славянск, Дружковка, потому что эти все города находятся в какой-то степени в низине. Соответственно, противнику это, скажем так, вот очень важен этот узел для того, чтобы дальше продолжать свои наступательные действия и захватывать нашу территорию и, ну, рушить нашу страну.
He would like to give his men more leave, but it's just not possible. And many civilians are not willing to fight.
Большая часть людей просто прячется, но только они не понимают то, что сейчас рухнет Донбасс, рухнет Харьков. Ну, к ним сегодня-завтра тоже придут, но только там уже не будет так, как здесь, и мы закончимся. А у них уже не будет варианта, как поднять триколор и кричать «Слава Путину!».
Also sheltering in this Chasiv Yar cellar is the oldest and one of the most impressive frontline soldiers I've encountered in this war. He's the company medic who is old enough to have served in the Red Army in the late 1980s.
Okay, well, I'm here sitting on the steps of a cellar of a destroyed cottage in Chasiv Yar with Doc, who is a member of a company of the Sarmat Battalion, who are holding this particular part of what is possibly the most contested town or city on the Ukrainian front line. Now, I'm speaking to Doc. Is actually 58 years old, which is usually would be quite old for a combat soldier. You can hear the artillery in the background upstairs. But as we have reported on before, this war is largely being fought by Generation X, and those who are particularly willing to fight it are the 40s and 50-somethings. The average age of the Ukrainian infantryman is as high as 43. I wonder, Doc, if you could tell me how you came to be here, sitting on this step in a cellar in Chasiv Yar.
У мене 3 дітей, я українець. Все.
I have 3 kids, and I'm Ukrainian.
Okay.
I tell him he looks pretty fit for 58.
Біг, стрільба, присідаєш, встаєш, біжиш, несеш. Знову біжиш, знову несеш.
Okay. What were you doing before the war? What was your profession, your life before the war?
Лікував наркозалежних.
I was narcologist. I was treating drug-addicted people.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That seems so ironical, but I'm not entirely sure why. I understand that this fighting here in Piski, in Volodar, and here in Chasiv Yar have been very tough for the battalion, and you must be a very busy man.
Первомайка, Володар, Бахмут і Часов Яр, і посадки. Все. Весь об'єм. Весь об'єм 56-ї бригади. Опер сказав, що де ми були. Ми не виходили з боїв. Ми так в боях, в боях, в боях і в боях.
How does this end?
Прогноз просто ваш.
Та ми морду наб'ємо і вигонимо відсюди. Тут варіантів немає.
We have no other option except to throw them away.
Okay. Doc, good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Very much.
Okay. You make a very nice cup of coffee.
Victory наша.
Victory will be ours.
Yes.
100%.
That's 100%.
Okay, cool.
The artillery will only intensify. Our truck needs to conduct another supply run. We have to go. The crucial battle for Chasiv Yar continues.